came across Stafford Beer's viable system model, the VSM, in 2005 when I was studying it as part of an undergraduate degree. And as soon as I started using it, I knew that applying it in the real world meant that I had to consider much more than just the model itself. I immediately focused on the more human side of the situation, with an emphasis on the interaction between human, situation and approach. And I wrote about creating the conditions for change in my own life situation back in 2005, which was the first time I fully acknowledged my own thinking and how Beer's work made sense to me. And I went on to experiment with the VSM, predominantly in public services and especially the NHS, and have worked with it in a variety of environments since then, including a number of years working on place-based system change. And my systems practice approach was established during this early work and has developed since 2005 and is still developing now. And my question has always been, how can the viable system model and its associated concepts and ideas be successfully applied in real-world situations, particularly by those who've not undergone academic qualifications in systems thinking? And my hypothesis, after years of using the VSM, I hypothesised that for successful application we need to consider three things. The first is the development of the perceptual receptivity of the individual. The second is the conditions in which application is happening, and that includes things like the social networks, the informal networks as well. The third thing is how we operationalise the VSM in complex situations. Central to this hypothesis, I believe that key to successful application is the perceptual receptivity of the individuals involved in the situation. The conditions and the operationalisation of the VSM surround this. And my work to date has gone beyond just understanding the viable system model as a standalone model. I capture this work in the Creating the Conditions for Change branded approach, where I start to lay out the interplay between all three elements of the approach, placing development of the individual as central, and I make visible the conditions that can shift the underlying paradigm to one of orientation and learning. What isn't shown in these materials is the operationalisation of the VSM in its more technical form, which I hold in separate documentation which I use in client work. And this work was originally named Relationship Mode VSM in my training courses in 2016 to 2019 and registered as intellectual property under that name. And I trained it to a number of groups. Creating the Conditions for Change was a dominant part of my training back then, and this was what the name turned into. And I've continued to refine the approach since then, although it remains predominantly the same today. And a number of years ago, my desire was to take the work into a PhD, but I didn't do this simply down to the lack of opportunity in the systems thinking teams that were around at the time. And I've since learned a lot about academia, and so I choose to continue the development of my work on my own terms and capture it in books myself. And I'm currently on writing my second book. My first book, Crossing the Bridge, laid out the formative years of my practice towards the development of creating the conditions for change. And my next book will take this even further and consider the questions and hypotheses I lay out to an even greater degree. And I look forward to moving things forward. Thanks for listening.